And now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Israel.
Mr. Chair, listening to the delegates who have spoken so far, it quickly becomes clear that some states are so busy accusing Israel that they are not interested in seeing the real issue, namely the politicization of the refugee issue. To be clear, Israel supports the humanitarian mission of UNRWA and abides by the understanding expressed in the 1967 Comey-Mitchell-Moore exchange of letters. We recognize UNRWA's important contribution to the welfare of the Palestinian refugees and their descendants. However, Israel deeply opposes UNRWA's political agenda. While all the rest of the world's refugees are aided by UNHCR, the Palestinians fall under the purview of UNRWA. While UNHCR teaches independence, UNRWA encourages lifelong dependency. Under UNRWA's framework, Palestinians can continue to be called refugees long after they acquire citizenship and find permanent housing. It is worth noting that when UNRWA was established, its mandate included the task of resettling refugees. But the mandate was amended in 1965 to remove this important function. Since then, UNRWA's mission is being tarnished by its unspoken political motto of once a refugee, always a refugee. One would expect that the refugee population would shrink over time, but this isn't the case under UNRWA. By allowing refugee status to pass to children and grandchildren, the number of Palestinian refugees has ballooned from a few hundred thousand in 1948 to over 5 million today. Today, many of UNRWA's beneficiaries do not live in refugee camps, yet they continue to be counted as refugees by UNRWA and are therefore denied the opportunity for full integration in their place of residence. If all this wasn't enough, UNRWA's education system deliberately perpetuates a refugee mentality amongst the Palestinian youth attending its schools. From the earliest ages, Palestinian children are taught that the only solution is the so-called claim of return. Many UNRWA's camps are decorated with keys symbolizing this claim. Young children are taught that these keys will one day open doors for them. But in truth, these keys have them locked in a distorted reality. Mr. Chair, the Middle East is saturated in petrodollars, but the funds mysteriously dry up when it comes to assisting Palestinians and subsidizing UNRWA. Some Arab states believe that the creation of UNRWA released them from any responsibility. They pass discriminatory laws that prevent Palestinian refugees from working in certain professions. Many of the states that have used this debate to criticize Israel have done little to support UNRWA or Palestinian refugees. The fact is that majority of UNRWA's fundings come from Western countries. If this weren't enough, resources that were pledged for humanitarian assistance are being used for political purposes. As an example, UNRWA spokesperson in Gaza was quick to demonize Israel, but blind to the real culprit responsible for the Palestinian suffering. He didn't utter a word of condemn Hamas when it stockpiled rockets in UNRWA schools and shot rockets from steps away. Mr. Chair, over the last summer, Israel was once again the target of unrelenting terrorist attacks. For 50 days, Hamas indiscriminately rained rockets onto our homes and our cities and sent heavily armed terrorists through underground tunnels into our communities. There is no country in the world that would tolerate such an assault on its citizens, and Israel shouldn't be expected to either. In the face of these constant threats, Israel launched an operation of self-defense, Protective Edge, to counter the attacks and defend our citizens. Throughout the operation, Israel was committed to upholding international law and did everything in its power to avoid harming innocent civilians. To be clear, Israel was only operating against terrorist targets, and we genuinely regret the loss of innocent civilian lives. In contrast, there was no red line that Hamas did not cross. It exploited our concern for human life by hiding in Palestinian homes, schools, and mosques, and using the basement of a hospital in Gaza as its headquarters. No site was off limits, especially not UNRWA schools, which Hamas and other terrorists abused. Israel and the international community expect UNRWA to conduct a transparent investigation of these crimes and publicize its findings. Mr. Chair, Israel does not shy away from accepting responsibility. In the early days of Operation Protective Edge, Israel established a fact-finding mechanism in accordance with international law to investigate exceptional incidents. These incidents include, among others, cases which resulted in harm to civilians or damage to civil or UN facilities. As a democracy, Israel upholds and abides by the rule of law. As such, we expect the international community will support us in this effort. Mr. Chair, we noted Mr. Kranzbul pledge to provide the fourth committee with a detailed breakdown of the casualty, injury, and physical and property damage suffered by Palestinian refugees in Syria. We have also noted Mr. Kranzbul's explanation that the disproportionate attention devoted in his briefing to the 50-day Gaza conflict versus the 3.5-year war in Syria is due to the fact that the conflict in Gaza coincided with the start of his term as UNRWA's new Commissioner General. Accordingly, we anticipate a more balanced briefing next year that will more accurately reflect the situation. Mr. Chair, it is time for those who truly care about peace in our region to acknowledge that a double standard is a trouble standard. The time has come for permanent solutions rather than another round of biased resolutions. The time has come to amend UNRWA's politicized mandate so that people come before politics. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Israel for his statement.